Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Gro-Show, where we are obsessed with growing businesses and equally obsessed with the people who grow them. My name is Drew, and I'm a marketing strategist and founder of Grow House, a business accelerator designed to help service-based business owners overcome the marketing and operational roadblocks that keep them from the success they deserve. As this is our first episode of the podcast, it only felt right to have someone on who's been there since nearly the beginning of Grow House. She is one of my first case studies in this business and one of the clients I'm most proud to have served. While we started working together on her family's cabinet refinishing business in Westfield, Mass., our work has evolved to include her burgeoning career as a fine artist with a truly unique style that has been recognized by art connoisseurs from across the country and coming off two back-to-back or side-to-side, depending on how you look at it, openings this summer. Please welcome Marie Crane-Yvon. And
Hi, Drew.
how's it going?
Great.
We'll add a nice clap track there for you in post-production.
Oh, perfect.
But I'm so glad to have you. When we first discussed doing this, you were the first person I thought of having on, because it really does feel like you've been on this journey since the beginning, and we've got to kind of grow our businesses together at the same time. I think you were, I looked back at this last year when we were talking about this, and I believe you were client number 3. So you weren't the very first, but you were very soon after we opened our doors. You came in. And so I thought what would be kind of fun is go down memory lane a little bit and talk about how we first got connected back in the Crackle days,
Yes.
what you thought about the original pitch that I gave you, and kind of just what you were going through at the moment that caused you to reach out to marketing firms in the first place.
Great. Perfect. That's a great place to start, is in the beginning, as always.
So why don't we start with, where were we in your business? Where were you when you decided to start looking for help in marketing?
So I think when that was about 3 years ago, right? 3 years? 3 years in March, April. And we had come to a place where I had my business since 1991. I'd started as a decorative painter, and then pan forward to 2007, my husband joined me. So we went from decorative painting to full service interior painting. And we were rolling along, but had transitioned our business again into cabinet refinishing. And I had started to feel like I was confusing my own message, even to myself. Like, how do I take my name to our established family business name into another realm, and thinking, how can I do this better? And also the idea that I really, as an entrepreneur, and, though I work with my husband, it can really feel like a solo show when you're working on marketing. So the idea of working with someone was really enticing.
So prior to, you'd been in business for a long time before we met. Had you hired other marketing agencies in the past? Had you had any experience, or were you really just going it alone for that whole time?
I was definitely going it alone that whole time.
That's a pretty good run. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that don't survive, a couple years, let alone a couple years without any support in marketing. The fact that you survived 20 odd years.
I'm hitting my own.
Just doing it yourself.
I know, I'm hitting my own. I'm on my 32nd year in business. I've only ever held one job in the real world, we'll call it. So yeah, I've been doing it my own way for a long time, which is, like, I'm sure we'll get into that later, which was its own cup. That was its own, like, cauldron of messy Hungarian goulash. It was like hobbled together all these ways of doing business that kind of worked for me, but I came into it before social media. So I would literally, have phone calls coming into an answering machine. I'd be lucky if I answered the phone to a client. I would, write out or type invoices or estimates and send them to a client, and they'd wait for them in the mail. So the evolution, I was hobbling things together a lot, because I would kind of like try to take this little bit of technology. I'd take that little bit of Google Documents. I was all over the place. Like, my systems were messy.
I think it it really speaks to how good the quality of your work must have been, because, you know, even though, you know, 30 years ago we didn't have the technology we had today, there's still an element there of friction that you're creating for customers, that, you know, to overcome that for most businesses, it's like you could do everything perfect, and one little, you know, typo on the website could be enough to drive someone away. The fact that you're able to keep such consistent work, and that is a testament to just how good you and your husband are at what you do.
And
so I mean,
we do. We take our relationships with our clients are as important to us as the work we do. So between you and I, Drew, we've nailed it down to like skill and pride. And that is, you know, I was messy on my side. I always hoped that it wasn't showing itself to my clients, you know, like it was like the messy behind the scenes.
And that was an interesting part of when we started working together, was that we kind of had, I'm hoping you can kind of paint the scene of where you were in your marketing when we first started. And if you could tell the story of, you know, I think our first or second conversation and our discussion about Facebook, because I still to this day tell people that story, because I think it's it was, I think, an eye opener for you. It was a big aha early on. But it also started unraveling that ball of yarn of like, hey, there's a better way to do some of this stuff.
Yeah. I think, are we talking about my dedicated Facebook following and how I was relying on that as practically my website?
Yes.
Yeah. So it really was like an incredible aha moment, because as you know, we started to go through like, what do you do? What are you up to? How do you do this? And was pretty proud because I had like about 1,000 followers on Facebook, and really a great connection with our community because of it. We could go out to eat and we'd be recognized, Jim and I, you know, because we're a local couple doing interesting things with interiors. So we had this little like small local presence, and I really didn't understand. I had no idea and hadn't even considered that could go away at any second. That you said to me, you don't own that. The only real estate you would possibly own on the web is your own website. And that was like the thought that having built, and that it could like disappear overnight really changed the way. Well, then we moved into making the website. Like that was like became the number one priority.
So the website was definitely, I think it was, I kind of remember you not even really wanting to show the website, because you're like, oh, it's just, I don't even like really look at it anymore. Like it was this almost afterthought in the business at that point, where it was, you were so dedicated to the Facebook page. You were so proud of what you built there. I think even when you had sent in your stuff, you would send me your Facebook link, and like you didn't send the website at all. And I said, oh, well, you don't have a website. You just have this. And you're like, well, I have one, but I don't think I've logged into it in like 6 months.
Yeah, I hadn't changed it, hadn't updated it. Like I love, you know, like we've kind of, as we had got to know each other, I love graphic design. I love, you know, I was an art major, and graphic design major way back. So I love moving fonts, making everything pretty, but I hadn't updated it, hadn't really played with how well it could work for me, wasn't aware of funnels or forms or anything that could make it easier for my clients to be in touch with us.
So when you first started that process, because that was a pretty big undertaking. I mean, you really, you know, two things to your credit. One, you decided pretty early on that you were going to do all the work yourself. That even though you didn't know everything about web design, you were kind of dedicated, that you wanted help with maybe the content and the overall, like where things go, how it's organized. But you did all the layout yourself. And it's a really beautiful site still today. I mean, it's one of those kind of designs that's timeless. You don't really have to, it doesn't look like it was designed 3 years ago. It looks like it was designed yesterday.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. And really, I owe so much of that to you with layout and the way it flows. One of the first things we did was, and I always appreciate this, And I'm going to keep going back to systems because you literally retrained my brain on systems and organization. When I'm doing math on my invoices, I share an invoice. I'll say, check my math. I was an art major. But that is how my brain works. I have like a very messy middle brain where I'm constantly pushing towards execution, but I can get lost in the details because design is fun for me. So that being said, where was I? Now I'm Lucy. I'm stuck in my messy middle.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, that process was, it was a bit of a tug of war between you and
I know.
Because
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I know where I was because you helped me literally take our business and go through and create methods. And we would do a 10-step program for 10 steps for this. And this is a method. And you helped me break everything down. So that delivery to the client became fantastic. And now 3 years later, I still don't have to go back to the website and redo it, but it's because it's so good. And clients tell me all the time, I went on the website and I knew you were the one because like we pay attention to the details. And that's really, really clear. We walk our clients through every step.
And that was one of the parts of this process that I think was most surprising as we started unraveling that ball of yarn was like we would start a call with one goal in mind and end up so far into left field.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it was the kind of thing, well, we have to address that first. We have to figure out like what this method is. And I remember on some of those early calls, I'd be like, okay, today we're working on, this process. Well, what does this process look like?
Right.
And it would just be kind of like radio silence because I hadn't really thought about ever describing that stuff before.
Right. Yeah.
And
totally.
I think that's the way a lot of, especially creative entrepreneurs think of things, is that they have so much going on in their brain that goes into this, or just stuff that's like muscle memory, that they never stop to examine what actually goes into this process.
Right.
It's like I've had people ask me about like how to learn copywriting. I was like, well, the way I learned was just doing it. I just, you can read as many books as you want, but you can just do it. And like, yeah, but how do you do it? I was like, I don't know. Like it just happens.
And they'll
it seems like that's how you're kind of running a lot of the back end operations. It was just kind of magic that you were cooking up.
Yeah, I was constantly cooking up. Like it was like zigging and zagging and pivoting and, oh, I need this and oh, I need that. But I could clearly see that I could do way better with marketing. 3 years later, I'm still talking about putting myself out there, still talking to you about content creation and videos. I think going into 24, that'll be our big push. But it always, for my relationship with you, I'm fortunate that we meet regularly and there's a definite momentum, and it's incredibly, incredibly helpful because you're not just a coach, but it's weird to say because it's like you're also a business manager. Like you are paying attention to the management end of the business, not just like how to make it look pretty, but how does it work? Because I've always felt that way in design. Like I'll go into a home, I did interior design for especially commercial for years. And I would go in and I'd say, well, number one, how is your customer going to come through the door? What's the first thing that they're going to see? Who are they greeted by? When they get over here, is it going to be comfortable to rest their elbow? Do you have good flooring underneath so that their knees aren't hurting by the time they're finished being in your place? If you don't take care of all of those small details, and if you're not paying attention to all of it, you can't just make it look pretty.
It's very true because that surface veneer will eventually fall away. Like eventually they'll realize that your product is not as good as whatever polish you put on it.
Right.
And when that happens, I mean, clients leave unhappy, they don't pay their bills, they don't complete projects, they drop you as a provider. They certainly don't give you referrals and reviews and testimonies and all the things that are going to make you successful. And so I think, you know, in the reason I was so adamant about addressing that stuff early on was because I was like, well, clearly you do good work, but there's these pieces that are falling through the cracks.
Right.
We shouldn't have those because it's doing a disservice to the work itself. And if we just go and put a shine on this, it's not staying true to the whole and I saw you change it. I think it used to be skill and care, now it's skill and pride, or
that's interesting. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yep. That is true.
But yeah, so like that really became, I feel like our champion's call every time was like, you know, is this being done with skill and care? Like, does the website reflect that same level of that same standard?
Yes.
And I mean, when we got to the final weeks of the web design, we were dealing in pixels, like minutia of minutia of minutia, making sure everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And, you know, all that, you know, a lot of people will say, well, no one's going to notice that. Well, people do. Like, you've had a lot of feedback on that site saying, like, it's one of the best looking home service sites they've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
If you didn't invest that time, you wouldn't get that kind of result.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, that being said about time, over these past years, I've had times where I have extra time. When we first met, I'm sure you remember, you had called me. I was actually coming out of a doctor's appointment and I was sick, and makes me choked up, but you were so pleasant on the phone. And for some reason, how I met you was so interesting, because I'm like scrolling on Instagram and I saw something like, for $99 a month, would you like to have all your content created, or can we make your marketing easier for $99 a month? And I was like, yeah, that seems affordable. Yeah, I wonder what that's about. Filled out the form, and I was instantly inundated with phone calls from all over the world, emails, phone calls. I'm like, what did I do to myself? I so rarely do things like that. I picked up the phone you're the only one I picked up the phone for. And we had a conversation. I was sitting in the parking garage and I pretty much like interviewed you, like a little bit hardcore, which in hindsight, I'm embarrassed.
You were pretty mean.
Such a nice guy. I was tough. I like, you know, like kind of put on like my like executive business hat. And I just was trying to be careful, trying to suss it out, and asked you for your LinkedIn profile. I just wanted to make sure you were a real human being, that I wasn't going to fall into something. So then we came together. I'm like, yes, let's do it. I think we had 1 or 2 meetings.
We had a follow-up with your husband. Yeah. And we all sat down and he grilled me. And I was like, oh boy, Marie's definitely the tougher one. He was easy. He wasn't nearly as hard on me. I thought I was in for some trouble, but I wasn't. Yeah. And then we had one meeting after that, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I'll let you continue. Then
I sent you a email and I said, Drew, I'm sorry, I'm incredibly sick and I'll be back. In maybe 5 or 6 weeks. I couldn't even pick my head up. So about 5-6 weeks later, I did come back. And because I had to take time off of work, like I was pulled out of the game. I couldn't drive. I was home. And the time spent with you, moving forward with our business, making the website, it was a gift, because it allowed me to still be working, creating, moving forward at a time that was really super scary for me. And like, we're really good friends because of that, because of so many reasons, but that being one of them. You had the luxury of having a little more time then because you were just starting, and we had some marathon sessions.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because it started when you first came back. I remember the first couple sessions were very short, and it would be kind of like you'd come on, you'd be like, today's not the day. I think we need to. Yeah. And at least you'd always come in feeling bad because you're like, I thought I had it in me. Yeah. But I just, now that the camera's on and we're working, I know. And so I
It's
know
hard
we
to
had
believe. Like I couldn't even think. Like that's so weird
yeah,
now because I'm healthy and feel great, thank God. I couldn't even think. And you're like, okay, we'll pick it up next time.
yeah. And I think that was, your recovery period was long. I mean, it was like 12 weeks before I think you felt
Oh yeah.
totally back, like
Yeah.
put back together.
It took a long time. So yeah.
So, but we got a lot done in that period of time. And
Mhm.
it was at this interesting point where I did have a lot more time. So it was like, well, why not? If I don't have a sales call on the calendar, if I don't have
Yeah.
another client appointment, well, why not throw in a couple of extra hours?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that was the first big hurdle. And I remember the day we pushed the site live, and thinking like, holy cow, I can't believe we actually got there,
Yeah.
because it was so much more than a website at that point. It,
And
it had been like we had.
do you
Oh,
remember
go
how
ahead.
that happened? Because we were working on it for months and months. And I was so afraid I was going to hit, because I was rebuilding the website over the other website. So
Right.
because I use Wix, you can hit publish and that's when it goes live. I was so afraid I was going to hit publish by mistake at some point when it wasn't ready. And that was exactly what I did. So we were like this, we were so close. And then it was like, ah.
But either way, I still remember it being, even with the last minute kind of stress,
Yeah.
being kind of this
Celebration.
yeah. And it was just like a huge chapter turning, because it wasn't just a website at that point. It was like the entire business had been like not revived, but like
Totally.
rebuilt.
Hmm.
And the website was just the imagery of that. It was just the
Totally.
visual of all the hard work we had done on the backside.
Yep. Totally. And
I think that,
then we went into creating my first ever actual CRM.
yeah, because I think you were Apple Notes. Was that how you were tracking
Um,
everything before?
well, I once had a client in the 90s who told me, you know what? He was big business, and he would say, Marie, just one notebook. Back when we had notebooks, he's like, I've seen you with like 4 notebooks. He's like, just one notebook. So similarly, I still had my probably 4 notebooks. And then I was also tracking thing on Apple Notes. And then I would move them into my QuickBooks. And it was incredibly messy.
It was interesting. It
It was
was a little horrifying.
It was
It
all
was
there. Like it was all there. And I can still, honestly, like we're cleaning our basement now. I can still lay my hands on somebody's color, which is shocking because I know I'm making it sound terrible. It was the way I did it. It was like if I were a baker, I would like, I don't know, it'd be like I'd be like grinding my own wheat. I was just making it so hard.
yeah. And you were redoing the entire process each time, as
Hmm.
opposed to kind of following a formula. You were recreating your formula every time you did it.
Yep.
The cooking it's like trying to cook the same meal every day, but without a cookbook, and it
Yep.
never quite turns out the same. Even though the quality of your work was
Yeah.
the same, it was
Yeah.
the experience of you having to go through that.
Yeah. How about like it would be I guess if we're comparing it to cooking, I was in a kitchen and when I'd be finished with my meal, I would take my primary like pan that I use all the time and I'd throw it down the stairs. And I'd know where it is, but I'd have to like go to the basement to find it. And then everything else might be in one box, but way over there, hard to reach. I'm going to have that box too.
Yeah. It
Messy.
was I mean, I think one of the most interesting parts of working for you was going through that process, because as much of the like unwinding we went through in the website, when we started working on the CRM, it was so much different, because I think my brain works in a much more analytical way than
Yeah.
yours works.
Yep.
And so I was trying to take what would work for me and work for this business and try to build this kind of completely logic based
Yep.
system, and put it into your business. And what was amazing was we spent months doing this, months building this, and then you kind of at a drop of a hat just threw the whole thing out and you're like, I'm just going to rebuild it myself, and then build something that actually does work for you.
Yeah.
But we were able to take some of those things that we had initially built and still work them in. So how did
I do this? So we went into using ClickUp, which is fantastic. Like I've used ClickUp, I've used Airtable for the art business. I like the way they both roll, but it was really like what I needed was really so simple. But by going through the process of creating them in that software, I was able to recreate it myself I use Google Sheets, Google Docs. Now I'm doing everything through Google, and I even have like a little button in my Sheets where it like automatically loads to my calendar. So I kept thinking like it'd be easier and instead of getting frustrated like I used to and just not doing it, I now go, okay, there's a way to do this. Like, let's figure this out. Because now I know how to think analytically and strategically about it. It's like you don't know what you don't know. And you're like I said, you're like part coach, part manager, but you're also like a trainer.
Personal trainer for marketing is not something. It's one of those things that's I've never seen anyone position themselves like that in the space, but I do feel like often that's the role I have to fill in the business, is to kind of kick people into shape with some of this stuff, because it's just, it's easy to be lazy about marketing. It's easy to be lazy about operations until it's not, until you come to a point where it's like, okay, if I really want to grow this, I have to get right.
Sorry, the dogs.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's
if I really want to look like good in a bathing suit, I got to lose some weight. It's the same kind of thing.
It is. And, people tend to like shy away or like, what's perfect. Do you want me to shut them up?
That's okay. If you need to take a minute, that's fine.
Okay. That might be it. School's getting out.
I gotcha.
So yeah, it's like the perfect time of year for it, right? Let's put like a
no problem.
And I'm right back.
All right. Well, while we wait for Marie to come back, we don't have a sponsor for this episode. We'll have a sponsor starting here pretty shortly. So for now, instead, I will just pick up a random item on my desk that I like, and they will be the honorary sponsor. So today's honorary sponsor is Underbrush Remineralizing Gum. Wife bought this for me off TikTok, and it's actually pretty good. It's all natural, sugar-free, all that great stuff, but I like it. It's, as far as gum goes, I'm not a big gum guy, but I do really like this. So Majestic Mint, and, you can send your checks in the mail there, Nathan and Sons. So, yeah, remineralizing gum. Besides that, while we're waiting for her to come back, just wanted to give you a bit of an update for those of you who are just tuning in, didn't see the Tuesday stream, just how this show works. So I go live every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday's show is kind of a behind the scenes of how I'm building my business, as well as just a general overview of strategy, things that are on my mind, things that I'm seeing in the marketplace that I find interesting. So that's kind of more of a one-on-one fireside chat. On Thursdays, we have a podcast style show like this, where I'll bring on guests, clients, both former and current, like Marie, and really just explore people who have the same kind of growth mindset that I do, and the same kind of mindset that we bring into our business. So with that, it looks like Marie is back at the table. So we'll bring her back in here. There we go. Marie, welcome back.
Thanks.
I was wondering if I was going to get to do a fake ad read there, so I appreciate it.
Perfect.
So speaking, I think where we kind of left off was the process of you figuring out how to take all of the kind of systems that we had built together and remap them to work for your business. Because it was a pretty dramatic shift. It was not like I'm going to tweak one or two things. It was really like throw the baby out with the bathwater and then, build a new baby from scratch.
Totally. I think that first year we were together, like we'll call it like a half a year, was the website. And then the next year, it's hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been quite a while.
and then we went into the taking care of the clients. And then this last year was really focusing on accounting and also my art business. So it's like, I really feel like the ability to like pivot and shift and move and make decisions with you, of course, with my husband, of course, like, constantly thinking as an entrepreneur, but just to like bounce ideas off of you. This year was wicked busy. And we like, yeah, that's like its whole own best story is the last year.
Well, I want to, before we get too deep into the art business, because I think that's where a lot of the excitement last year really happened. There was a lot of movement there. We spent a lot of our year working on the art business. But the thing that I think started that project, well, I wouldn't say started, but was kind of the underpinning of the whole project was the website. And I think this kind of shows how you've taken that there's a way to do it. It has to be done. Let's get it done kind of mentality, and applied it to this website. Because as easy, quote unquote, easy as it was for you to do the CY site, the Painted Crane site, which is beautiful now and up and everybody can see it, paintedcrane.art. That was a beast to put together and to program. And when you talk about 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that was the story.
That was really,
months.
really hard. And I think it comes down to like really being tenacious about what I wanted and how I wanted it to look and feel. I was committed to having like little silly things like a back button, and have, who is ever scrolling along to have a comfortable experience so that they can scroll back and know where they were. Because I've looked at art, I've looked at clothes, makeup, I know how it feels to not be able to get right back where you want to be. But yeah, we did tons of work on that. And it did feel like, oh, we're ready to go. Oh, we're not quite ready to go.
It was, I will say the level of persistence that you brought to the table with that, like you got, there were a few times where I could definitely tell you were discouraged with the lack of progress and the fact that like you had gone so far down a road only to have to turn around and, walk barefoot back up it. Yeah. And it was hard to watch because as someone on the sidelines, you were building it with your assistant and you were kind of sharing responsibilities there.
Yeah.
It was like, oh man, this is so agonizing to watch the struggle. But I think at the end of the day, you ended up with something that looks really nice. And so it's one of those things. It's like the Winston Churchill quote, like, right? Like, as you're going through hell, just keep going.
Keep going. Yeah.
Because that really was the, it seemed like everything else in your year, when it came to your art business, came kind of naturally. Everything else just kind of fell into place for you. And so I was hoping you could tell the story of, first off, our first conversations about art early on remember, so this actually goes back to the other conversation. One day you logged on and you did not feel like working, and all we did was talk about art for 2 hours because that's what made you feel better. Yeah. And I walked you around my house and showed you all the pieces on my wall. Yeah. You walked me around your house and showed me all the pieces, and that's when I learned you were an artist. So from I would love it if you could explain your kind of thoughts on your art back then and how that had evolved to where we are today, where you are in galleries and not just your dining room.
Oh my gosh. So it's really cool because I was thinking about, as we were getting ready to do the podcast, I was thinking my theme with you seems similar, where I was constantly kind of like defining what I'm doing and who I am and how I'm showing up publicly, right? How I am going to move what I do out into the world. And when we first met, we had that great time and we started talking art. I'm like, oh my gosh, Drew's an art collector. So we were really, sometimes it was hard to talk about other things because we were both passionate about it. And Drew, you said, oh, would you ever sell that? Or do you sell your art? And I was like, no, it's they're legacy pieces for my children. And I've decided a few years ago that I was going to build a collection for them. And that's that. And I have no interest. I'm doing it all for myself. I've never done anything for myself. And that's what I'm going to do. And it took about a year later. We were blessed with a new space, a new shop that was much closer to our house and had like 5 minutes away and had a perfect place to paint. So I was just painting more and had an opportunity. I was going to, so this was, it was August of 22. I had been going to a local beautiful gallery and, going to the openings, and Guy McLean, who's the director, I was introduced, and I was introduced as an artist, which I would not have introduced myself that way. And he said, oh my gosh, where can I see your work? So I said, oh, I'd love to show you. It was so organic and natural. We set up our shop, which is for refinishing. And we took all the art out and we hung it on the walls. And I really spiffed everything up and had Guy and Becky Blackburn to our shop and had lunch. And they spent about 2.5, 3 hours. And at the end of it, he said, the only question is, when can you do a show? And I didn't know that I wanted that. That was like the best part about it. Like, I just didn't know how much I wanted people to see what I was doing. And I'd also come to a place that I was really excited about what I was doing. I had developed some techniques and I'd moved through some processes. So having started as a decorative painter in 91, I have a real toolbox for finishes. And that was another part of defining my story of yes, I'm a fine artist, but I'm also a craftsman. I'm also a decorative painter. I'm also a designer. So pouring all of those things in and trying to define myself as an artist of what I'm doing, where I'm going, what am I going to do with this? I'm in my 50s. How do I want it to, what will it look like when I'm retired? Can I do this for retirement? Those are all conversations we had on the weekly.
Yeah. The part that I think was amazing to me was the day you came in, and I think you came into a group session, and you announced that you were going to sell your work. And I was like, who kidnapped Marie and replaced her with a clone? Because this is not the story that I had been hearing for years and years. Every time I would ask, it was never an option. Your stuff was uncollectible. That's what I even asked, well, could I just have a small? No. They're all for my kids.
I'm like, I might gift you with something, but it'll end there.
Yeah. But what was fascinating was there was no gradual move to, it was one day you told me you would never sell art again. And the next day you came in and said, guess what? I'm selling art.
Yeah.
It was such a rapid and quick change.
Yeah.
But I think even though mentally you got to that place very quickly, I think the process of actually selling it, I think then became the next hurdle.
Yeah, that was the biggest hurdle of all. And I feel like I'm finally, based on our last meeting, and I feel like I'm finally there. But to try as an artist to try to put a price on your passion, where one painting could take, there's a painting in the studio right now that I spent 9 months on, and I just kept going back to it. Well, how many hours could that possibly be? When in my business strategy, I estimated jobs for 30 years. I go, how could I even put a price on that? And then I could do something in 2 hours based on a technique I'd been developing for 2 years. It'd be done. How do you put a price on that? I did that in 20 minutes. I took 9 months on that. And then standing with my work and telling somebody what it cost, I'm my own worst enemy. I feel the words don't even come to me. Like I'm doing it again. Like I just get like stymied when it comes to putting a price on what I love and asking people to pay for it.
You know, there's a whole ethical, moral, you know, creative discussion on why people feel that way and all of that. But what I find more interesting in all of that is that the real outcome of that experience and understanding that was it was not that you lacked the skill, but the level of comfort, the ability to separate those things, the 20-minute thing and the 9-hour thing, and understand that one might cost more than the other regardless of the time that was spent.
Right.
I think the real interesting part that came out was watching you come to the realization that this is just not something you should be doing. And that's been something that I think early on you delegated nothing. Like, you know, at the time we first started working, I had offered to build the website for you. And that was like a hard no. It was like, no, I'm going to do it.
I think I got you.
And it wasn't a money thing, because back then I was selling them for like a nickel and a hairpin. So it wasn't a price thing. It was you wanted that control over the process. And over the years, you have slowly let go of pieces of control of your process to great success. And I think that's been the kind of underpinning this whole time of like you letting go of some of these things you held so tightly, and then having this pop of success come almost immediately after it. And so it's like, you know, when we first worked together, you're holding on to these business practices and you won't let them go. And then you let them go a little bit, and then things start going a lot more smoothly. And people start coming through the website and telling you how great the website is. And then we have the systems process that we build with the CRM. And it's tough at first, and but then you have this pop and you're like, oh, I can do it this way, and it's going to work so much better for me.
Yeah.
And so it's like this constant fight that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, where they have these deep held kind of beliefs and internal systems and stuff that they just won't let go of. And what they don't realize is it's those same things that are actually holding them back. If you hadn't realized that you needed someone else to come in and help you sell your work, you might have given up. You might have just said, well, this is just not for me. It's just not my cup of tea.
And continuing to talk to people about it, like my husband, Jim, who you know, Jim, and I'm going to interrupt this because I want it to be said that you, whoever's listening, drove how many hours, and you came to the opening of my first art show, and you stayed overnight, and then we got to meet each other in person. And that was like, it's in friendship as much as it is in business. And I just want to thank you for that. So constant support.
I wouldn't have missed it, because I knew how much it meant to you, but two, it just felt like the culmination of this, not just the work, but the relationship of, like, again, taking you from someone who would, like, if I would have told you back then, oh, in a two years, you're going to be hanging in a gallery and selling these things, and you're not even going to care. Like, it wouldn't, you would have hung up the phone on me. Right. Like it just was such an incredible transformation. And that's been, I think, the theme in all of the work we've done together, is that there's these blips of success have been followed by this great transformation in your business. And so now you have you have a pretty full plate. You have right now you do have painted crane.art. I wanted to show people that piece right there, the twigs on my shelf. That is a piece of Marie's. There's another piece up there that you can't see. There's this, which I'll give you a little plug.
Aww.
Hold on. This is a gift box that she sells on her Etsy store, and this thing is really cool. This is something that started as one thing, started very plain, started almost as just like, you know, putting some prints in a box, and then unfortunately, I've taken this all apart, so you're not going to get the whole unboxing experience. But I did send Marie a video of me unboxing this when I got it, so maybe she'll be able to share that. But it's really an incredible package, where you get there is a painting that she includes on canvas to wrap the prints. She has this really nice hand wrapped bow, and then she has these prints of some of her work that were hanging in that gallery. And so they're just really, her style. I should have like had these all up on screen share and stuff. Now that I think about it, I just I should have thought. But I have this one on top because that is one of my favorite ones that she
That's
has.
Down the Road.
Down the Road.
Yeah.
And then this one.
My Turquoise.
And this is the third one. And I believe I got like a 1 of 1 box, right? You kind of
That's
mixed
the other
up.
way though. Yeah, it goes like up. Yep.
That way?
Nope, straight up and down. That's a portrait
way.
style. Yeah. That's
okay.
Golden Hour.
And so that is her work. And she put a nice little card in there with a note for me and everything. And can't forget this nice little card that you learn more about Marie. So you've got a bunch of stuff going on. You have that going on the Etsy store. You have your work up for sale right now. People can buy these. And some of your paintings are huge. They're like we were talking about one of them, which I think you might have sold or have someone interested. That, I mean, you'd need a 30-foot wall with 15-foot ceilings to put this thing because it's just such a monster of a painting.
Yeah.
But you also have smaller pieces, and you have pieces that go with any decor, any kind of natural decor.
That'll end.
Now that my commercial for you is over, do you want to kind of tell people a little bit about where they can find you?
So now my family's coming home. So
okay.
So where people can find us. So with my husband and I, with our business, it's cycabinetpainters.com, and we're in Western Mass and Northern Connecticut. Really, we say like all of New England. We've been all over the place. And then my art site is paintedcrane.art. And that is where you can find some, what's happening. I'm also having like social media presence as well.
Yeah. Well, I got to thank you. I appreciate you being the first guest on my new podcast. I hope this was. I hope it wasn't too painful for you.
No, we have an easy time talking to each other, and I'm as excited as you are for me for the opportunities over the last 3 years. I'm just going to share back that I'm equally excited for you. I'm thrilled you're doing a podcast. When I see you on TikTok doing like a little blurb, I'm like, we need more of that. So definitely love working with you.
I've enjoyed every minute working with you as well. I'm so thrilled that we've been able to work through so many things. It's very rare in marketing that you have a client for as long as we've been together and have been able to climb so many different mountains. Usually it's, okay, we start here, we end there, and then the client cycles out. And you have been someone that every time there is a new challenge, every call, there's a new challenge to address and a new interesting thing that you have cooking up. And I'm very excited to see what you have going. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on the spot. Did you do your homework for the week?
Maybe not. Not yet. Remind me of what was my homework?
It was the content plan.
Oh, I am working on that.
Okay.
I am working on that. And Jim and I, we talked about it this morning, and we were all yes. So yes, by next week I'll have that pulled together. Because the good news is I've done it before.
That's true.
Yeah. The good news is, and sometimes I guess that's the advice for this is you'll get a lot of great advice from Drew and you might not follow it. But if you keep a notebook and you take good notes, maybe not 3 notebooks like me, but if you can lay your hands on the notes from your meetings, it's usually already been said.
Well, and I don't mind repeating myself, as I'm
no,
sure
you don't.
you've realized.
You don't.
So I'm more than happy to give the same advice twice if it takes a couple of times to sink in. That's okay.
Yep.
So
good luck to you as you launch this.
Well, thank you. But as we wrap up, what is one piece of advice? You've been in business longer than I have, longer than probably most of my clients. What's one piece of advice that you can give entrepreneurs out there who are looking to build something and, maybe they're struggling in the early stages, maybe they've already built something and are struggling to figure out what that next step is for them? What kind of advice can you share?
Yeah. Put 100% into whatever you do. Don't cut corners. If you can't do it right, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
That's very apt advice.
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds kind of tough, but
is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
Not
Don't go
everybody can be.
halfway. Yeah. Be all in.
Thank you so much, Marie, for
Thank
joining
you.
me today and sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
And I'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
All right.
Okay.
And for the rest of you, I will see you on Tuesday on our third stream. Next Tuesday, same time, 2:00. We'll be going live. I'm going to be breaking down kind of the history of this business, how we've evolved, some of the challenges we explored, why we positioned our business the way we positioned it, and going forward, you know, kind of showing the roadmap forward of what we're planning on building, so that in future episodes, as I build this and I show you what I've got cooking, it all kind of makes sense contextually. So anyway, thank you all for joining for today and watching this video. Appreciate it. Like, share, and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And have a great weekend.